What's up, guys? So, this is something for my martial artists out there, particularly the guys or gals who practice traditional Japanese martial arts. Um, I started my martial arts journey in judo, so I'm part of that collective. Really wasn't my choice. If I haven't relayed this story before, when I was a kid, I was a scrawny little kid, and not that I'm that big now, but I can handle my own. But I was a scrawny little kid, and when I was 7, my parents basically said you have to take martial arts. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't a preference of mine. Didn't want to do it. They told me I had to, and they took me to the local YMCA and said I can choose between judo or karate. I was kind of scared to take karate. I'm familiar with movies. This is like the early 80s, so I'm thinking I would get beat up or something. So I took judo. Oof, boy, did not know. You get beat up in judo worse. There was actually a class where I was the only student who showed up. So all the instructors just took turns throwing me. Literally, they just took turns throwing me. And I had to practice my break falls as they did so. um, but in any case, so a lot of people in traditional Japanese arts, and maybe even people who practice other traditional martial art styles, but still like to embrace some of the aspects of Japanese martial arts culture, will go by the edicts of Bushido, which is supposedly the warrior's way, or how a person is supposed to conduct themselves as a martial artist, stemming back to the time of the samurai. But I'm here to say that's bullshit. There wasn't any Bushido. It was invented in the 20th century. Let me explain, because I know I may have triggered some people. There's some people who aren't martial artists who probably think I'm BSing as well. So don't get me wrong. The samurai did have a code that they went by, at least a loose sense of rules and laws that they were governed by. But there was no Bushido. This was literally invented by a guy in the 20th century, a Japanese guy who was raised in Europe and raised and educated in Europe, came to Japan and literally wrote a book or essay or whatever, creating Bushido based off the code of chivalry of medieval Europe. But during this time of Japan being in its prime, the Imperial Japan and the expansionist um, goals, they embraced this guy's um, invention of Bushido and used it basically as uh, Imperial Japanese propaganda. That's what made it so big. It had nothing to do with how samurai actually conducted themselves and this and that. It was literally based off of the the chivalry code of the knights of medieval England. It didn't exist for samurai. Samurai would have conducted themselves in a way that benefited themselves and ensured that they survived and gained more land and stuff like that before the Meiji era. The Meiji era is the era where Japan modernized and basically did away with samurai. First, they did away with anyone being able to carry swords. Um, and then they just pretty much got rid of the samurai class altogether, because by the time that they did away with people being able to carry swords around and this and that, other than military officers, a lot of former samurai ended up becoming bandits and thieves. And it's not like there was love lost. Unlike the movie The Last Samurai with uh, Tom Cruise, which is a great movie, but it's very ahistorical. um, By that time, there was no love lost between the people and the samurai because the samurai had been treating them like shit for a while. So when the Meiji era came around and they were basically neutered, most of the people were happy about that. Okay. And like I said, there was never some martial arts code of which they used to conduct themselves that was passed down to the classical martial arts of modern day Japan, like karate, judo, kendo, uh, traditional jujitsu, kempo, and so on. This made up, guys. I'm sorry to say, Bushido's not real. Like I said, the irony that Imperial Japan, for its own propagandist uh, rhetoric, would use something based off of medieval Europe is kind of funny. As far as I know, the guy who was writing it didn't even know anything about uh, traditional Japanese culture. Like I said, he was raised and educated in Europe. Um, so, when I hear martial artists talking about, following the Bushido code and all that sort of stuff, I just kind of laugh, at least internally. I don't try to chuckle outwardly at them. I don't want to start, some sort of untoward conversation with them. But yeah, guys, Bushido's not real. Sorry to tell you. Um, it doesn't hark back to the days of the samurai and how they treated each other, which goes into a previous video I did where I talked about, there weren't historical ninjas. Like samurai basically conducted themselves in a way that they were told to do so by their lords. If a lord told them they needed to spy or assassinate someone, that's what they did. There was no ninjas around to do that. Um, but enough of that. Um, I think I should have made my case for it. But like I said, you can look it up for yourself. But Bushido's based off of medieval chivalry, which in itself is not something telling people to rescue damsels in distress and stuff like that. That no, that's a fanciful way of looking at things as well. Um, if you want to look at how knights actually treated people, Game of Thrones is a pretty good example. Yeah, knights were mostly land barons fighting each other for for you know the people, their resources, the property, and the kings had to try to rein them in. Chivalry is how they treat each other, like how military officers have to conduct their behavior with each other. It had nothing to do with being romantic and rescuing ladies and being gentle and all that sort of stuff. So people get chivalry wrong too, but that's a different topic. I'm just here to say that Bushido is basically a Japanese bastardization of medieval Europe chivalry. But I'm just a contrarian.